This episode is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 seller of games and gaming accessories. And GatheringMagic.com, the #1 resource for Magic the Gathering news and articles.
Hi there, my name is Aaron, aka Uncle Landdrops from the General Zone blog, and today on CMDR decks, we're popping the hood on one of my favorite mono black lists, commanded by Greel the Mind Raker. So the overall theme of this deck, as you've probably guessed it because of what Greel does, is discard theme. But it's not necessarily in the traditional sense. You see, Greel has a little clause in his spell shaping contract, which is to discard 2 cards from our own hand, which means that we're also kind of hurting ourselves. But the way that I've kind of designed this deck is to not play the Megrims and the Liliana's Caress to punish people for damage that way, but instead use the discard outlet as a way to reanimate our creatures from our graveyard that we're going to pitch to Greel, so that we can disrupt our own opponents and then bring them back out of the graveyard afterwards. So that's generally the strategy with Greel. He is a 3/3 horror spellshaper legend that is a Mind Rot on a stick, which is you pay X and a black, you tap, you discard 2 cards from your hand, which is a spellshaper clause for the legends. Target player discards X cards at random from his or her hand. So in case you didn't know, that's what Mind Twist means, that's what Greel is. One of the other cool fun things that our playgroup did that's a little bit different is that we actually altered one of our commanders to be a Pokemon, and Greel is my commander for that, and he is a Gengar, which is pretty exciting. We have a Tanawa Gyarados, a Reaper King Victory Bell, and a Niv Mizzet Charizard in our midst right now, and it's pretty fun when we get to bring those guys out and Pokemon battle in games. Our basic land package here is 25 of my favorite swamps. They were supposed to be meant to be the same color as our commander's background, to try to be pimp, and but playing Gengar obviously changes the colors of that. So we've got 12 basics. 4 of them are fetches. We got Terramorpic, Evolving Wilds, Marsh Flats, and Verdant Catacombs, mostly because I had room for them, and Paying Life is sort of a theme of this deck, so I thought it would be fun to play those, but they can probably go in another deck at some point for more basics. We got a Bojuka Bog, which everybody plays, but it's really not that great. I'm not a big fan of it, and it could come out later. We've got Temple of False God. We've got a Proxied Ancient Tomb, simply because I just don't justify paying $12 or $13 for a real one right now. Maybe when it gets down in price, I'll get a real one. Mikokoro, Center of the Sea, which is my favorite land. Pay 2, each player draws a card, so it's a Temple Bell when you're not doing anything, and when you've got mana up and you're trying to play an instant, and if somebody doesn't play, a card that you necessarily want to respond to, you've got this to draw cards. So it's pretty good. We've got a Thespian stage to copy our boring old Cabal Coffers, which you'll see here in a little bit. I just want to play Thespian stage because it's fun. Phyrexian Tower. We've got, it's pretty cool. It's a gold bordered one. We sacrifice creature to add double black. That's a lot more relevant than I thought it was ever going to be. So I tend to sack creatures a lot, and it's my only sack outlet in the deck, actually. Urborg, Tomb of Yagmoth. Pretty basic, pretty boring. Again, Cabal Coffers, super boring. And the boringness continues. We got Soul Ring. We actually have a really cool, I think this is some kind of promo Everflowing Chalice. I don't really remember where it comes from, but it's exciting, and it's a lot cooler than the pink one, which I didn't think a Greel deck or a mono black deck would want. I figured they want a wispier, eviler cup than that one. Expedition map to go get our boring old Cabal Coffers, or a Mikokoro. Most of the time I'm actually going to get Mikokoro or Temple of the False God more than Cabal Coffers. Guess Grimoire is actually, in this deck, it's Greel's Grimoire, because Greel is our commander. And it's very, very good. In the opening testing of this deck, this card was drawing anywhere from 5 to 14 cards, and my opponents got pretty wise to it quick, so now it's just a great little removal target so that my mana rocks and other things don't get destroyed so quickly. Worn Powerstone. We like to have a lot of ramp in this Greel deck because we want to have we want to be able to Mind Twist for more than necessarily. We want to get Greel out quick, and we want to Mind Twist for more than necessary in a lot of situations. And Worn Power Stone is a great way to down payment on turn 3 because we're not going to do anything on a black deck anyway on this turn, and go ahead and have 5 coming up the following turn. Otherworld Atlas is another way to get cards in people's hands so that we can pitch them. A lot of times I need cards because I'm also discarding stuff to Greel, so this is a great way to be huggy while also not necessarily and gain a little bit of political favor in multiplayer, but also just kind of keep drawing cards. Temple Bell, again, more redundant card draw. Darksteel Ingot, more mana investment. Pristine Talisman is actually much more relevant with the life gain. We play a lot of life pay draw card effects in here. Ambitions Cost, Sign in Blood, Night's Whisper, Read the Bones, all this stuff. So we're actually using this to gain back to a normal amount of life versus trying to gain more than the amount of life that we already have. So this is just kind of netting, we're netting 0 here with this card. Diabolic Edict is pretty sweet. Our instant package is a lot of removal. We're not afraid to play Diabolic Edict. We're not afraid to play sack effects. Corpse Dance, probably a card that I could take out. I realize that this card actually means that graveyard order matters, and that's annoying. So I'm probably just going to take that out simply on principle. Withering Boon is one of the most surprised pieces of tech that I play. Pay 3 life, counter target summon spell for 1 and a black. So if we don't want to see a creature come into play, we can do this. A lot of times I use this on commanders so that they have to pay more in 2 turns or whatever. Stuff of the Past is pretty sweet. X and a black, exile X target cards from player's graveyard. They lose 1 life and we gain 1 life for that. Again, life gain is kind of a necessary thing in this deck because of how much life we lose trying to draw cards a lot of the times. So having little pieces of tech like this that also provide decent utility are really great. Go for the Throat. Destroy target non-artifact creature. Pretty obvious. Imp's Mischief. We change spells targets a lot. I like to do this simply because people like to hit Greel or they like to hit one of my creatures, and I got to make sure threats stick a lot of times, so it's nice to have this little card. Also, I've been able to make somebody else discard stuff if they're trying to make me discard, so that's pretty fun as well. Crypt Incursion is the beatdowns. This card is essentially a time walk in most decks, and when we get to pitch somebody's whole hand, a lot of times we're getting all their creatures, and in the late game, when we can get 10 to 14 creatures in a graveyard, we're going to gain a lot of life and get back ahead again. So this is one of the most fantastic cards that I think they printed in Return of Ravnica block for Commander, and I'm excited to be able to play this. Hero's Downfall. This deck got a lot of Theros goodies. In fact, I think the Theros set personally saved this deck from extinction, so to speak. We got the first one that we're seeing here is Hero's Downfall. Destroy target creature or Planeswalker. So we've got some Planeswalker removal here, and a versatile thing which kind of outclasses Murder, which is the next card, but we're playing both anyway because we've got the double black to pay it. Sudden Spoiling is one of my favorite cards in the deck, mostly because we get to create fog if we're super low on life and nobody can do anything about it. It's just one of the best mono black spells that I play. Snuff Out is pretty cool tech. Again, we've got a life-paying theme. Rather than playing Phyrexian Arena or some of the other boring black draw spells that most people know, we're playing removal that kind of is unconventional, and we're playing and card draw that's unconventional, and we're paying Snuff Out. So you can pay 4 life if you have a swamp, and you can destroy target non-black creature, which is pretty sweet. Rescue from the Underworld. Again, a lot of Theros goodies are in this deck. This one is okay. It's not the best one, but it's super themey, and I like the theme of this card by itself, so it made the cut simply because of how innately awesome it was when I saw it. Our enchantment package is a lot of Reanimator stuff. We got Animate Dead, we got the Necromancy, we got the Diabolic Servitude, pretty much the whole suite, and our probably the best goodie that I got in this deck is Whip of Erebos. Before Theros came out, we only had 1 win condition, really, and I'll get to that. It's, I think, the last card in this little set in the entire deck. But Whip has changed the deck dramatically, getting lifelink, getting creatures. With Erebos out, it helps to turn on Devotion, if we've only got a couple of creatures out, so I can attack with Erebos and then not have him out, not have him activated as a creature to avoid removal later. Liliana of the Dark Realms is my favorite black planeswalker, and it lets me get Swamp, and we only have 37 lands, so it means we're running a little light, less than I'd like. So we're getting to use the +1 a lot, not so much the other abilities. Moriok Replica is a very interesting card that I play in most of my black decks. It's a 3 colorless artifact that is a Sign in Blood. Being able to reanimate it makes it more than just a Sign in Blood, though. We can actually gain life off of this card by blocking creatures that are bigger than it. So we're still losing 2 life when we go to sack it, but we could be theoretically netting 4 life if we're blocking a 6/6 or something like that. So it's pretty cool, and late game, getting this back on a reanimator and being able to draw into more stuff has been relevant time and time again. So I like Moriok Replica a lot. Black creatures tend to not have a very high curve, and they tend to come out starting at turn 3 or 4 like we're seeing here. This is my game day, I think, promo of Liliana Spectre. It kind of looks like a Ring Wraith, which is pretty excited in the full art version. And each opponent discards a card, so it's kind of like a Siphon Mind without the card draw. And with a Greel's Grimoire, or Geth's Grimoire, as it's appropriately called, we can make it a Siphon Mind. So reanimating this is a pretty sweet target as well, especially in the late game when people are almost in top deck mode, and I can turn them into top deck mode. Big Game Hunter is a big game. It's my card avatar. We did an episode of the Stack on the General Zone where we got to pick cards that we thought would be our card avatar, and this is mine. Destroys a target creature at power 4 or greater, so it's just a little baby, but it is a big game sometimes. Again, more removal effects. We've got a Fleshbag Marauder. Most decks, mono black decks, I think, should have something that really just creeps them out art image-wise. This is one of those cards. Fleshwrither is a pretty sweet little new thing that I'm trying out. It's got an ability called Transfigure, where you pay 1 and 2 black, and you sacrifice Fleshwrither to search for a card that's converted mana cost 4, and you put it into play. This is a good way to get many of the following targets that I have, and I already had a bunch of 4-cost creatures in here, so as you'll soon see, this card is particularly effective. For starters, we have Solemn Simulacrum, which is the ultimate utility of all time, and one of my favorite cards. We've got Filth, which allows us to go get Swamp Walk when we pitch it in the graveyard, so this isn't a card that we're going to get with Fleshwrither. This is probably more likely a card that we're going to discard to a Greel, if we can. Crypt Ghast is a great mana fixer, and the Extort is extremely underrated, because once you get more mana, then you can extort pretty much every spell. So this card is pretty awesome, and again, it's resilient simply because I can reanimate it, and I can tutor for it and get it right on the battlefield without getting it countered or whatever. Skin Render is just another fun card that I like to play. It puts 3 -1/-1 counters on a creature, so it makes Titans less big, and it's a little 3/3 body. I tend to like the mid-range creatures in this deck because I don't mind chump blocking and and what have you. So that's in here. We've got a Desecration Demon, which is exciting. I know that this is a great card in Standard right now, but I really like to play it in here because a lot of times most people don't want to sack stuff to this. They don't want to get this Desecration Demon bigger, so they're just sitting around. Unless it's a token deck, you're going to get to beat down with this, and it's kind of fun. Liliana's Reaver is a pretty interesting card. It's got Death Touch. When it deals damage, you make a player discard a card, and you get a 2/2 zombie tapped on the battlefield. I really, really like this card a lot. I've been able to get it triggered a couple of times, which is very exciting. But, I've had generally lackluster results, considering how cool I think that this card is, generally. Sangromancer is a nice one. We've got ways to gain some more life. So whenever an opponent discards a card, or whenever a creature's put in the graveyard, we play a lot of removal. We play discard. So Sangromancer, this little vampire shaman, sits right into our deck really nicely. Erebos, obviously, is, I think, a necessary include now, just based on the fact that life gain is a real thing with decks like Aloro coming out. And I really like this card for card draw too. When we can get to battle with it with Whip out and Erebos out, we can battle and then draw a bunch of cards late game. So it's pretty nice too. Again, more Theros tech. Theros saved this deck. Grey Merchant of Asphodel is like Exsanguinate, but it's a little bit more controlled, and that's one of the reasons that I like to play it. It's also completely recurable with all the reanimate stuff that we have in this deck, so it's nice, and it takes a little bit of skill to set up Devotion, more so than just Exsanguinate, where you just have to tap out mana and draw into the card. Grave Titan. Pretty obvious card is obvious. Again, more Theros stuff. Hithonia is pretty sweet, and destroying all our creatures gives us another Wrath effect that's pretty versatile, and she's reanimatable, so after we've used the monstrosity and we've blocked and she's died, we can go get her back. Butcher of Malakir is probably the biggest creature, the most I'm willing to spend on a creature, because it's got Grave Pact effects, and it's a general threat with evasion on a 5/4 body. Our sorcery package is our last part. We've got a lot of reanimate here, a lot of tutelage, and just overall, that's pretty much all we really need in this deck. So we've got Stitch Together, my favorite reanimate spell. Because of the threshold, we're able to, normally get everything into play that we want, never have to get it back to our hand. Knight's Whisper, so we've got some card draw 2, lose 2. We've been talking about the life loss theme as a card draw source, so we're drawing more cards versus just a down payment every turn with an arena. We've got Reanimate, got Demonic Tutor, we've got Black Sun Zenith. Again, I wanted to have a recurable removal spell, and being able to shuffle this back into our library is pretty sweet. Sign of Blood, got Hymn to Turok, which is on theme with our discard stuff. Again, we're not playing a whole lot of discard, but early on in the game, on a turn 2, being able to discard, force discard 2 cards at random is pretty awesome. Read the Bones, probably the last piece of Theros tech, hopefully. Scry 2, draw 2, lose 2, pretty awesome. Beseech the Queen, just more tutelage. Ancient Craving, draw 3, lose 3. Ambition's Cost, draw 3, lose 3. Siphon Mind, a little bit more discard theme and card draw. Diabolic Tutor, Increasing Ambition. Beacon of Unrest for more recurable reanimate spells, which is pretty cool. Demonic Collusion gives us another discard outlet in case we don't get Greel, we don't want to pay 9 or 11 for Greel, and it lets us get whatever we want to go get. Cabal Conditioning is the best discard spell that I play outside of Greel, and with Mana Rocks out, it allows us to get 3 cards out of each opponent's hand. In multiplayer, this scales pretty nicely. I don't recommend it necessarily in one-on-one, but because of multiplayer and because of the way that I can ramp pretty quickly into this, I've done it as early as turn 3 or 4. Just getting 3 cards out of somebody's hand, or each opponent's hand, is pretty sweet. We've got a Decree of Pain. Again, destroying creatures, drawing cards, that's what we really want to be doing in here. So we've got that. And then our last card is Army of the Damned. This was the only original win condition in this deck, and magically, because of Theros, we've got a lot more tech. So that's the whole deck. Gengar and I would like to thank you guys a lot for watching this episode of CMDR Decks. Please favorite and subscribe. And if you're interested in seeing more of Uncle Landdrops and the General Zone staff, feel free to visit thegeneralzone.blogspot.com. Thank you. Pass the turn.